try to put, we call it person in environment, that it's this ecological context, that the person is always in their environment. I'm never pulling the person out. So I'm listening to all of the different pieces and components that are going on around. I'm listening to context as well as content. So I'm listening to all the words that are coming out of their mouth, but I'm also listening to what the process is as well. And I think that part's really, really hard. And process is, all the things that are not being said, not being spoken. It's the power dynamics between the two of us. It's the relationship that we have. It's the cultural background that the other person might come from. And so I'm really trying to take all those things into account because, when I'm teaching this stuff, one of the examples I give is like, your boss comes to you and says, hey, don't forget, you have an evaluation coming up later this month. By the way, the bathrooms need to be clean and I want you to do that. Like, okay, there's a process that was involved in there of like, hey, you really need to do that because you have an evaluation at the end of the month. So the fact that those two sentences were combined together is communicating something more than just those pieces by themselves. And so I always try to encourage people, listen, stay there with the person, kind of in a one-on-one situation, really listen, but then also kind of be listening, have that other eye, like listening to, why are they saying this in this moment? Why now? Like, why in this way? Why did they use those words? And so try to listen kind of at that other level as well. And then when you're helping the other person feel heard, when you're letting them know that you're listening, you can make some comments on that. And this is what a counselor does, but I think this is totally appropriate for RAs to do as well, is, it sounds like blank, blah, 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 blah. And the other person is like, I didn't actually say that out loud, but that is kind of what I'm trying to tell you. And then the other person is like, whoa, this person really is hearing me. This person really gets where I'm coming from. And that's really powerful for the other person because it really feels like I have a vested interest in you and I'm also really listening to what you're saying. So there's tons of like the little things that we can do, throwing back, like bobbing your head up and down and saying, and, I see, or I get that, or I'm hearing what you're saying. Like those are, reflecting some of those things back. Those are those kind of attentive behaviors, so there are those things. But then there's what are the comments that are coming out of your mouth? Like what are the things that you're saying? What are the comments that you're making based on what the other person is saying that help them feel like you really get where it is that they're coming from. And that takes some really good listening skills. You can learn that, there's reflections and affirmations and summarizing and all that kind of stuff, kind of those like basic counseling skills. And then you can use those in your everyday life as well. And people feel like, oh, wow, okay, I really feel heard by the other person. And then that just makes me want to open up more or keep talking more. As an RA, you're the frontline staff when somebody's having trouble. You see them like, oh, wait a minute, you were sitting with people at lunch the other day and today you're sitting by yourself. You're the front line, you're going to see things right away. So to be able to have a conversation with somebody that helps them open up even more is actually going to be a really helpful skill to be able to have.
Listening. I think listening is really important. And one of the things that I have learned is constructive listening. And in constructive listening is about really listening to what that individual is saying without you taking away any power from that individual. And an example of that is that I ask you, how was your weekend? And you'll say to me, well, I really had a lousy weekend. It just was horrible. I had this, I had this. And then all of a sudden, if I say to you, well, you know what, my weekend was lousy too. I had a lousy weekend, probably even worse than yours. So what I've done is I've taken everything that you've mentioned to me, taken away that power, because it wasn't about me, it's about you. Mm-hmm. And not even validated that person, not acknowledged that person. So that person leaves feeling really down, and probably more than likely the person, you know what, I don't want to even go there anymore. Right. I don't even feel good. But instead, if I say, you know what, I hope your day gets better, and I'm really sorry you had such a lousy weekend, but I do hope that it does get better, then that person feels validated. That person will feel like, gosh, I need to come back to El Centro or anywhere because I really feel good about that place.
I think for me and just my background, how I listen to others is a lot of times just paraphrasing and really watching body language or the facial messages. But But then also, you know, what are they saying? Is it in lines with how they're presenting themselves? Because they could be saying everything's fine, but everything is indicating it's not. So really kind of trying to absorb all that, so it's a bigger picture of what that may look like and how I'm listening. And all the counseling stuff about leaning in and, you know, acknowledging, nodding, all that kind of stuff I think comes in for me. But I think just really listening to the kinds of things that are shared and then seeing if there's any underlying things within that. And that's maybe just something that I've developed over the years. Because depending on what they're sharing, there could be other stories under that, and trying to get to those under stories to figure out what's going on.